Welcome back, sci-fi fans, to another episode of the Science Fictionary Podcast. I'm Andrew. I'm here tonight with Marisha
How's it going?
and Daniel.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, I can do this thing. I can put these little name tags up there so
There
everybody
we
knows
go.
who you are.
Yes, it's important.
Somebody's already in the chat. Oh, what's up, Nick? I should have known it was already you there. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5. And this show's been it's been interesting. The phenomenon of this show is interesting because it's whether the things that it's addressing should be politically polarizing or not is questionable. It's because we have a party system that uses things that this show's addressing as bludgeoning tools against each other. But these are not really political. They are used as for political agendas, but these are not political issues in a lot of the things that it's addressing, particularly with Sam and Isaiah, and they're not directly a political issue. And it's interesting to see because it's been a very divisive show because some people, and I understand it because politics in this country is so divisive itself right now that people are, anywhere it pops up, people just go, nope, I'm out.
Well, it's a matter of certain fans looking at it and going, they're pushing a political agenda. I'm out.
Yeah.
All right, we don't want to see them push their politics on us. We don't want to see them. But that's not the. How do I put this? You cannot, like we talked more than once on this show about how the driving plot line and theme and conflict of this show is the legacy of that shield and the legacy of Captain America. Mm-hmm. What it means to be Captain America, living up to Steve, all these things. You can't tell that story and involve Sam Wilson and not address some of the plot points that have been addressed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and it's important.
Yes,
it's one of those things that the stuff, especially the stuff with Isaiah Bradley, and I love Sam's take on it and his sister's take on it. She says, "You're not going to let him get in your head, are you?" And he says, "Look, he had already told Bucky, you can't let other people tell you who you are."
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he kind of has to have this moment of, okay, I've got to, I should be taking my own advice. Mm-hmm. And I've got to be who I am. And, it's, these things are important. It's just, I know that it's uncomfortable and it's this political thing, but we can't stick our head in the sand and say these things never happened. Because the example they used the example of the Red Tails. Right. And yes, that's real. That happened. It's an atrocity.
Yeah.
And so it is important that we look at those perspectives. And that's what I love about this show is I've only found one scene to be too on the nose. And that was when the police car showed up in the earlier episode, because it felt like, why did the police car show up? It was just kind of felt too forced. It didn't feel organic. And I think that there was something maybe cut out of the scene that messed it up. It felt incomplete.
I don't know. And I did kind of, that one did stand out like a sore thumb when it happened.
Yeah.
As far as the rest of it goes, and to give a little background, when Isaiah Bradley was created for the comic books, I'm sorry, the author that created him wanted to tell this story purposely drew a parallel to this Tuskegee. Andrew, help me. Tuskegee.
Yep.
To the Tuskegee experiments, because that did happen as part of history. And don't think for an instant that the story of Isaiah going and rescuing his friends from the POW camp and him going to prison for it, don't think for an instant that it's an accident for that to parallel Steve's actions in Captain America: First Avenger.
Yeah.
So that you can draw the dichotomy between the differences in the way these men were treated.
Right.
And like I said, you can't tell this story and not address that. You cannot. You can't work it from the point of view of one of your major plot points being that a black man may be our next Captain America and not address what it would feel like to a black man to be Captain America.
Right.
You have to address that. Honestly, if they had skimmed over it and never addressed it, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it. And you have to get the perspective of men from Isaiah's generation, because that's important. Like Sam says, if he had lived Isaiah's life, he would probably feel the exact same way he does.
Right. And that's what I
Sam's
like.
got
They're
the perspective
presenting
on it.
us. They're presenting us
real.
with a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah. And that's real because as human beings, we all do have different perspectives. Even people of the same race, which,
Same
you know,
age.
two black men are going to have more in common with each other than they're going to have with me. That's just a point of fact.
Yeah.
But even they amongst themselves can have different points of view. Everyone lives a different life. You know? So I'm glad they didn't skim over that. And and some of those moments, like I tweeted out, there was more than one emotional impact moment in this show I didn't expect. And a couple of them came from that part of this episode, addressing those things.
Right.
We needed to do that.
Yeah. No, I agree completely.
And I think it's done. And I think it's done well.
I think it's done extremely well. I found the storylines in this episode in particular as, you know, we're really getting down to a point where I feel like the writers really kind of honed in on what they were the story they were trying to tell. Because there's been some points up to this episode where there were things that didn't seem to be connecting well, or seemed to be kind of glossed over, where I think now
They've just been setting a stage, though.
but there were some things with like the flag smashers and stuff that was just like, I think I understand what you're trying to do, but you're just really not pulling it off. And I feel like now that what they're becoming is becoming very clear.
Yep. Well, and I think that who the flag smashers are has kind of, it's how radical groups, it's how radicalization works. You know, they have people get pushed and then so they respond in this extreme way. And then so they get pushed harder. So they just go farther, you know, it just kicks it down, you know, like that. And that's how it goes. That's very, like, if you study how radical Islamic groups, you know, how they kind of work, how they recruit, that's how it goes.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's actually back up to the beginning of the episode, and we're going to circle back. I mean, these are the big things. This is the real meat of what's happening here, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, let's back up to that lead into the title card. I mean, maybe one of the best lead-ins to a title card in the MCU.
Yeah, it was great.
I just love the idea of, okay, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Let's go ahead and kick this ass, and let's just get it done.
Yep.
I love that because that was the attitude I had. That was because, you know, coming out of episode 4, as a fan base, you are just an emotional, and you're pissed. You want to see somebody finally just kick this dude's ass.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and get that part of it out of the way. That needs to happen. So I love that. And it was a good fight scene. It was exciting, and it was just I just love when he breaks his arm. It's just like, yeah.
And I feel like everyone was very much themselves. Like, everybody was very on the nose in character. I mean, it was, you know, like Sam and his, you know, kind of counselor, you know, put on his counselor hat and like, let's talk this down. Let's talk this out. You know, maybe they'll, you know, and of course, Bucky's just Bucky. Just, you know,
Bucky's
being
like
him.
Yeah,
ready
Bucky's
to go.
Like, let's get this over with.
Let's get it
Bucky's
over.
already made up his mind.
Let's throw down.
Yeah, Bucky's already made up his mind. Sam's going to talk him out of the shield, and Bucky's already ready to take it.
Oh yeah.
Bucky was ready to take it as the first time he saw him on the TV. He was ready to go. He was ready to go jump up there and take it.
But just a incredibly well shot fight scene. I
Very-
love the end of it. The light coming through the window and shining on Bucky with the shield and as he walks off and I mean, what an intro to the episode. And it was a great intro because we really kind of wound down and got more personal for the rest of the episode.
Yep.
I kind of wish they would have given us some idea of how much time passed during this episode.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll find that out next week. But it does feel like we get the whole training montage. Clearly, we've done some passage of time here.
Yeah. And they don't jump straight to the hearing they had with Walker in Congress right away either. So there's some time. There's some time passing before we even really get into the meat and potatoes of the episode.
Right. We don't know how long Bucky spent tracking down Zemo or...
I think he knew where he was.
Oh, he
I
knew
think
exactly
went
where he was
straight
going.
there.
I think that happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think that happened pretty quick. But you also have whatever's in that case Bucky asked the Wakandans to build. They're not throwing that together in an hour either. So
right.
I think we're done with a few weeks for sure.
Yeah. So about the Zemo scene, what did y'all think about that? We got the monument, and of course Zemo is very much Zemo even once the Dora Milaje show up. Mm-hmm. And he knows what's happening.
Afternoon, ladies.
Right. But the big moment there is Bucky. We see Bucky beginning to understand the difference. What Sam tells him later is, you haven't been. You're not fixing.
You're not making amends.
You're not making amends. You're avenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so we see that moment where Bucky has come to grip. Where we finally get Bucky coming to grips with everything. And now, of course, sending Zemo to the raft. What do you think about that? To me, that sounds like the potential beginning of something involving the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, and that's been talked about a lot.
Yeah. Well, we're sending him to the possession of Thunderbolt Ross now.
We are. I don't necessarily know that we need a lot of those characters also, though, aren't in place yet.
That's true.
Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that. And also, you got to think about it. Most of our Marvel villains are dead. I guess if we do get anything concerning Thunderbolts, we'll just introduce whatever characters are going to be in it as the show goes on. There's
right.
Is it basically the Suicide
too.
Squad? Is that basically what the Thunderbolts are?
No. The Thunderbolts. Okay. The best iteration of Thunderbolts we ever got, they started out as their public face was as a superhero team, kind of like the Avengers. Mm-hmm. They did some good things. They had some big fights. They drew a lot of public support. It became very popular. And then at the end of the first issue, their leader takes off his mask and it's Baron Zemo. And you find out it's actually the Masters of Evil. The Masters of Evil were an evil superhero team. Well, they kind of rebranded themselves, took on new identities where no one knew who they were and pretended to be superheroes.
Wow.
Calling themselves the Thunderbolts, and that's where Thunderbolts came from. Okay. And it was at the time, that was really a neat idea. And that was a really good book. So, we may get something like that. But I do get where you're coming up with the Suicide Squad angle from. If Thunderbolt Ross puts them together to go out and do some good in the world, but maybe we still sort of get that Masters of Evil twist on it with Zemo's got his own ideas and behind the scenes he's working against Ross. Like if we got a story kind of like that, that'd be pretty cool. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about them actually planning this show.
No.
I just know people are making the connection between Zemo and the Raft and Thunderbolt Ross and connecting those dots.
Right. I certainly don't think we're done with Zemo.
Oh, no.
I think you're sending him to the raft,
for something.
Or at least, if nothing else, it's like, where we're going to keep him until we need him again.
To either be recruited or broken out eventually. Right.
Again, Yeah.
again.
Right. So for John Walker, the big scene, and of course, he starts making the plea to Sam about having, well, he killed, I'm blanking on his name.
Lamar.
He killed Lamar.
Yeah.
And he said, and Sam says, don't
No, he
talk,
didn't.
don't do that. Don't go down that road. And of course, we see him insisting on that lie for the rest of the episode.
Yep.
Well, they say there are no lies so convincing as the ones we tell ourselves.
But what did y'all think about the hearing?
Whew. That was brutal.
Well, again, that's something me and you and David talked about last week. Was we
It
knew
is.
there had to be some kind of reckoning or damage control or something the government would have to do. They would have to take action. So, not unexpected. I do, though, the moment in Walker's dialogue in that scene where he tells them, "I am what you made me."
Yeah.
That really, like that rings true. And I don't want to say you should feel sympathetic for this guy,
Well, I mean, I
but
think
he is what he is.
he's complicated, is what he is, and the thing is, and I've seen people talk about this. He is a damaged soldier. I mean, that's a big part of what he is. Now, he's not the only damaged soldier in the story, and we've said this over and over. Like, there's really strong parallels between him and Bucky as far as being the damaged soldier. And being the damaged soldier doesn't excuse his behavior, but it does help explain his behavior.
It does. He's a good soldier. And that was
Right.
always kind of the thing, like we talked about with Steve, and I said, say the serum accentuates what you already are. Steve was a good man. Walker's a good soldier.
Right.
Yeah.
A good soldier, he goes where he's pointed. He follows orders. He does the job. He does what's necessary to complete the objective he is given. There is no gray area there for deciding that's what I'm looking for. There's no gray area there for deciding which orders to follow and which orders not to, and which means don't justify your ends. There's none of that. You follow orders, you do what you're told, you're given an objective, and you do what you have to complete it. That's his mindset. That's who he is. Like he told the government, I am what you made me. I did what you trained me to do. And
there's a lot of that rings true. And the fact that he is damaged from some of the things that he may have been asked to do. I think the thing is, though, is yes, we should absolutely have sympathy for the fact that he is damaged and was damaged by these things, and did those things for the cause of his country. But
he told Lamar a couple episodes ago that having that shield and being Captain America was his first real chance just to do something good.
Yeah, and
because
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, because he knows there's a moral line that he crossed in being a good soldier this long.
Right.
That's the things he did not fit who he wanted to be morally.
Yeah.
So, but now, I don't know.
And
that's the thing. The guy's definitely got a lot of issues, PTSD and stuff going on. But at the same time, the guy, I don't like that as this is totally what they made him. I still think, and I still will insist that the guy just reeks of bully. And the government made him a better bully. They didn't make him the bully that he is. They just did some things that messed him up and maybe made him worse.
The thing is, he was never the kind of person Steve Rogers was. Like, you can see even just, talking about, the captain of the football team. And he's always been successful. He's always been good at all the things, right? And, there's a reason. It comes back again to the wisdom initially in choosing Steve for the test because he was more interested in being a good person than he was in following orders. And
Right.
he was more interested in doing the right thing than he was in people knowing who he was. And John Walker, Captain America, like every time he walks in, he's like, he feels it important to state to everybody, in case you missed, do you know who I am? It matters to him that people, look up to him and think he's all that. And none of that ever mattered to Steve. And the thing is, the military didn't make that.
Yeah.
The military didn't make him arrogant.
Yeah, no,
They probably didn't help.
Right. And it's interesting. I mean, they're making him a much more complex character, which they clearly, I don't know how far the intentions extend beyond this show, but I think from what we're seeing so far, possibly pretty far reaching.
I'm going to add something and just build off what Marisha was saying.
Okay.
I never took that as arrogance. I read that more as insecurity.
Yeah, but there's a fine line there.
Which, like Andrew calling him, like Andrew described him as a bully. There's a lot of bullies with that quality as well.
Yeah.
But a lot of
absolutely.
arrogant people are also a little insecure, in my experience.
I mean, I think those feelings are all can be fairly intertwined, and but yeah, I mean, I think this guy is, what they've given us on his background is, he's the classic bully. That, and so I think that's why he was never, even at his best, was never Steve Rogers.
Right.
Because that's who he really is. That's what the serum amplifies. But following up that particular moment, we're introduced to a new character.
And she's great. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
She's
that's
so
a character that could have an enormous impact on the MCU going forward. I mean, what do you think they're going for there? I mean, we going full Madam Hydra here, or?
I have no idea. That character has been so many different things in her history, like a lot of these characters have.
Right.
What I was going to say, my favorite version of her is we're not going to get, because we've already blew past the time where we could have had that. She was a lover of Nick Fury.
Right.
And she was just, I don't know how to describe it, but I liked that era of it. That's when Jim Steranko was writing the book, and it was just really, she was a femme fatale. And even, especially with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I'm not sure we're getting that. Even though I love her, but that kind of, I think that I can't imagine her being the version of this character I would like to see. So I do think she's going to be some version of, like you said, Andrew, Madam Hydra. I think we've kind of killed Hydra a little bit, though. She may have her own organization at this point, but I think it'll be something similar.
I still think Hydra's...
on that note, the scene where they hijacked the council, the Flag Smashers, man, the parallels to some of the things that Hydra was doing, and the just kind of whispering, code word exchanges, and it. Are we rebuilding Hydra? Is that what's really going on? Maybe the Flag Smashers don't know it yet. Maybe they don't know that that's what they're building.
Right. Maybe she's the power broker, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that's
she's pulling all these strings behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Of course, we get a moment with Sharon in this show, too, that still leads you down that road. So you don't know. Like, why the hell is Sharon calling Batroc and putting him in touch with the Flag Smashers? Like, I don't get what the hell's going on. Unless we find out next episode that he tries to impede the Flag Smashers in some way, and that's what
Right.
Sharon asked him to do.
Well, that's the thing. And that's kind of what I think. They didn't tell us. We hear her hiring him, but we know Fury's hired him before too. Like, we don't really know what this character's purpose here is yet. And I still don't buy that Sharon is the power broker. I will accept it if it happens next week, but frankly, I still think that I still think there's something else going on with her, and I think she's putting Batroc there as an agent, doing her bidding, whatever it is, whether it's
right,
there.
But what is that?
Right, and I guess that's what we're going to find out, because I don't believe he's there for the reason he says he is.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of tend to be with Ro there, that one episode seems like not very much to wrap all this up.
But also, though, we got to remember this entire show, the power broker's been trying to capture Carly too, because Carly stole the serum and he wants the serum back. He's not interested in helping the Flag Smashers complete their objective.
Right.
He wants Carly back. He or she, whoever it is.
Right.
So we still don't really know a lot. We just know that Sharon asked Batroc to go meet Carly and do something, get himself in with the Flag Smashers and do something. We know she asked him to do that. We don't know what that is.
Right.
We know that now we have Countess Vanessa Fontaine de Allegra and whatever the hell she's doing.
Allegra de Fontaine.
De Fontaine, excuse me. I've been reading the damn book for 40 years. Got her name backwards. But whatever. I really think she might be the person pulling the strings behind all this.
Yeah, it seems likely. He's right, though. Sharon is brokering power. Even if she's not the power broker, the moniker could fit.
Is that Ro?
That's Ro, yeah.
Yeah.
So, pretty much once we get through all of that, we kind of we get these very personal moments where Sam goes home. Of course, Bucky's going to show up, but kind of what did y'all think about the rest of the episode? This kind of going home and sorting things out, but having these personal moments of reflection to kind of also, and of course, I guess I shouldn't, before we talk about that, there is a big moment before that. We go back and we did touch on this briefly at the beginning of the show, was he goes to see Isaiah Bradley. What did y'all think about the conversation with Isaiah? And we did touch on this a little.
I liked it. I enjoyed that scene.
Yeah.
And it comes back around later in the show after Sam's had time to reflect on it, and it all comes together. And it's really well done. That these two men, they share a race and on some level a similar history, but they also have lived two different lives. They have different perspectives on the same issue.
And I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge we are not our parents or our grandparents. We they're part of who we are, and we can respect their positions and their opinions and the way they see things. But we don't have to be them just because we respect what they have to say.
Right. And like you're saying, but Isaiah's perspective and his point of view is important. We can't forget those things happened because, this is a fantasy show. Okay. But there are real life parallels to the issues Isaiah was bringing up.
Absolutely.
But we can't forget that there are races and generations of people in this country who were and are treated a certain way.
Yeah.
And it is important to address it. And we're kind of rehashing stuff we talked about earlier, but you can't tell this story with the characters we're telling it with and not address it.
Absolutely.
So
And
I love the conversation. It made sense. It felt real, and it was important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like for the first time we're seeing actual growth from Sam and Bucky, because they're
becoming their own people.
They're taking in all of this information around them. They've been in Steve's shadow, and then there's all these people who want to tell them who they are. And I feel like there are so many people who want to say, you've done these things, so you're this, you're this certain race, so you're this. You have to be this in this category because you check off these boxes. And Sam and Bucky are both basically saying, I don't have to be what you tell me I am. And, in fact, I think at some point earlier, Sam actually tells Bucky, you don't get to tell me who I am. And so they're both actually finally kind of owning that.
Yeah.
No one around them, Zemo, Isaiah Bradley, society, nobody gets to tell them who they are. They get to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And they get to be the examples that the next generation needs. And I feel like that's a really important, I feel like those little boys are a really important linchpin for this episode, because that's why we have to do better.
Right. Well, I love the shot of the nephews, one playing with the shield. That's a great shot. Bucky's like, hey, and once they run off, he's just grinning from ear to ear because he loved seeing it. And then, after Sam's kind of gone through, the whole training montage, we get one of them standing there tracing the star with his fingers. And I mean, it's these things are, yes, there are things that are used for political gain in this country, and nobody, and by people that don't really care. But the truth is that we can't stick our head in the sand and pretend that these issues aren't real. And that's really the big thing there. And so, I mean, I think we've said what we need to say about that scene, but it's an incredibly important scene. Now, just on a lighter note on that scene, we've clearly in the MCU been setting up something to do with some version of the Young Avengers. We keep seeing the first person we run into every time we go is Elijah Bradley. Some of the other Young Avengers that have shown up, we're kind of like very aware that's what's going on with them. Are we going to see Elijah Bradley as one of the Young Avengers? I hope we do.
I'm out of trying to guess this.
There's so much going on. The MCU is so big now that it's just kind of impossible.
Wouldn't that be such poetic justice, though? To see the grandson of the man who was like swept under the rug and ignored and abused
it would be,
like get his comeuppance. I mean, and isn't that what, isn't that what we want for the next generation? Don't we want better things?
Well, I mean, that's always been part of the American dream, is that every generation does better things. And that's not just, I hope my kids are, do better than I did. It's that I hope that generation by generation, our country can become better, a better version of itself.
Oh, and the partner that took the wings, yeah. Oh, he's definitely coming back. Torres.
Oh, yeah, he'll be the
Yeah, no, we had a pretty good idea that was happening. But let's talk about, before we run out of time here, let's talk about Sam going home. I think that's a big moment for Sam, is this whole going home thing. And then I know Marisha is excited to talk about this because she wants to talk about Bucky and Sarah. But
I ship them so much. I want to see Sam Wilson have to deal with Bucky for every family holiday for the rest of his life.
Because my favorite moment in this episode is Sam telling Bucky, "Don't flirt with my sister. If you do, I'll have Carlos feed you to the crabs." Right. Is that what he told him?
They told him, "I'll have." Well, he said fish. He said, "I'll have Carlos cut you up and feed you to the fish."
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Either way, I'm cutting you up and using you for bait.
Right,
Leave
exactly.
My sister alone.
Right.
I feel like this is really a really important step for Bucky, because either he's actually emotionally, even in a small way, emotionally available to somebody else on the planet that isn't Steve Rogers, or he's actually remembering how to flirt. I mean, and remember, like when we saw him in
Well,
First
he hadn't
Avengers,
done it in 70
he
years,
was
Marisha. Give the guy a break.
he was such a flirt though, and like he was so awkward. That poor little date on the first episode. I feel like this is definitely meant to kind of like provide a contrast.
Well, that one was going well until she brought up the old man that has to make amends to. That one he's struggling with.
But he wasn't gonna like he wasn't making eyes at her. He was just sort of sitting over there wishing he had the nerve to make eyes at her. So I feel like we're finally getting him a little bit more himself.
Well, I think that's what I think that's what this show is about. Is about, and I said that way before the show started. This is about them finding who they are in the absence of Steve Rogers.
And the other thing he is he's the person who shows up. For Steve's entire life, Bucky is the person who shows up. And that, just being willing to show up when the going gets tough, that's the mark of a true friend. Is just being willing whenever things aren't going so great, just to, pick the box up. And I feel like that's whenever he and Sam finally get some sort of rapport going, other than just like we're tolerating each other, is whenever he just is not willing to show up because he has to be there, because he's got a better idea, because he knows better, he's smarter, or he's here to chew you out. He's just there to help.
Yeah. There's a lot, even though it's really kind of, slowing down the whole thing. No, we've still got an hour of this show left, but there's a lot I love about it.
Best moments, though.
I love all the intimate moments, and I love the fact that, heck, we're all three from the South. I love, in the South, it's not always portrayed as a wonderful place in film. And I love this portrayal. Sam's like, look, these people are accepting. These people, and when Sam calls on the community to help, they show up and help. And that's real.
That is absolutely, if you've never lived in a small town in the Deep South and seen hundreds of people show up to buy chicken plates because somebody's kid is sick or somebody's grandfather.
Ain't nobody,
Exactly. People who they don't need your chicken plates or your jambalaya or whatever it is. But y'all, if I have the number of times I have seen people show up and raise thousands of dollars for some crisis or another. That is absolutely 100% what the Deep South is like. Hey, how's your mama and them? I need something, and people just showing up to do what they can, even if it's just this much. So, hooray for showing the South is good for the first time.
I know Marisha's been getting a big kick out of, Anthony Mackie's real accent.
Real accent, I love it.
To come out a little more, too.
That real accent sounds like home.
You get to talk to me every day. That doesn't count. Or
but you're not on TV. You're only on YouTube. It's different.
I got you. All right.
No, but seriously. Out of all the superheroes, 97% of them are from New York or outer space.
And the book version of Sam is from New York too.
Yeah. Which is what, but the fact that Anthony Mackie's actually from New Orleans, and they kind of decided to play that up. And
exactly.
I've actually seen him in interviews talking about when he first started going on auditions, and they were like, yeah, dude, you got to lose the accent. So he's getting to actually pull out his accent. He's here a little bit more every week. And I'm like, oh, look, it's Louisiana.
All right, y'all. So, what else? What else do y'all want to talk about the episode? We had the moments. The training montage was cool, and we got to see a lot of stuff. But honestly, I think my favorite part of the whole episode might have been Bucky and Sam playing catch with the shield.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
back and forth.
And mine is them. My favorite moments of the episode are Sam and Bucky, but it's just all of them. It's not just playing with the shield. It's them fixing the boat.
Yeah.
They're sitting there working on the water pump, and Sarah walks up, and I told you that wasn't the problem, and yeah, it was. And well, this is your fault. Well, no, if you had done what I told you to, it would have been done before she got here. We wouldn't be in trouble right now,
But she's so mean. It's tough love. Back
Right, exactly. I this is my favorite episode of this series, and it's the one with the least amount of action in it.
Yep.
Because that's not what this relationship, and I've said that before, this relationship is what I wanted to see develop, and it makes the show to me.
It absolutely does. And it's that we've actually been talking Tolkien a lot this month. So we've been talking a lot about friendships and camaraderie and like just the having each other's back.
Loyalty to each other.
And I do love, one thing I do love about the MCU is the number of really important relationships we see that are completely platonic.
Yeah.
They're not romantic. It's like it's not the, oh, will they or won't they kind of drama that they always like to milk in everything. But you see so many, you see Cap and Bucky, and you see the way they like care about each other, and you see Nat and Hawkeye. And
yeah, that's one I was going to bring up. That's my favorite.
Absolutely.
They will absolutely kill and or die for each other. And not a moment of sexual tension involved.
Right.
Yes,
It
and
is,
it's
they
great.
just love each other.
Yep. And I feel like, everybody always wants to just make everything about like, ooh, is it going to be, are they going to be a thing? Are they going to be, and they've done a great job, I think. And I think this is going to be our next relationship that they're going to be really important to each other.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, I think they already are. And I think they were to begin with, and they wouldn't admit it. And I like at the end of this episode as Bucky's leaving, and they're like, co-workers, like, it's like they won't say friend. It's just,
right, yeah.
Right.
At this point they are.
I feel like they kind of had the like brothers on bad terms thing going on at the beginning, where nobody's allowed to mess with him except me. And now I feel like they've kind of finally worked through that. That therapist would be so happy if she could see them finally actually having a conversation.
What was funny was it was Sam's experience as a therapist that helped either one of them more than anything she told them.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, they're actually listening now. Mm-hmm. Like, Bucky can acknowledge, like, I felt this way. It's not me, it's you. I mean, no, it's not you, it's me. Kind of issue. Like, I felt this way because of my own issues. And like, I'm acknowledging that there are things that I didn't see about this. And, and Sam is kind of coming to grips with his own stuff, and they're actually talking to each other instead of talking at each other. And they're both actually listening. And, it's just seeing this relationship kind of form has just been, it's been great.
And the thing is, I love this show. I loved WandaVision, and I love how deep both shows have been willing to go with telling more personal stories.
Absolutely.
Which is this is the perfect place for that. But before we wrap up, because we're getting a little long here, before we wrap up, we got to talk about that post-credit scene.
Yes. Oh, you can't not, right? Right, Ro? Can't not talk about that.
What you think, Daniel?
Well, we're getting U.S. Agent.
Clearly, yeah.
Anybody who ever heard before this show ever started, whenever they cast John Walker, if you didn't immediately go, well, we'll have U.S. Agent for a few years to fool around with, then you just weren't paying attention. We knew that was coming. I wasn't surprised by the post-credit scene at all.
Right.
That being said, I've also never been a U.S. Agent guy. I'm just not. Like, no,
I'm not that interested. I'm interested in the character to see what they do with him, but like, I'm not like, oh yeah, U.S. Agent. I'm a huge fan, but I still think that they've turned him into a fairly interesting character. I am curious to see where they go with him.
Soldering his deadgum Medal of Honor onto the shield.
Of, welding those metals to that shield.
Yeah.
This guy's going somewhere real dark now.
Yeah, he's like, I feel his poor wife, y'all. I'm feeling really, really bad for his poor wife. I feel like
from a lot of the predictions I heard, like Ryan Airy over on Screen Crush, he was like, I don't have a good feeling about what's going to happen to the wife, y'all.
I feel like at this point he's kind of got the angel and the devil with the crazy Valentina lady, and then the wife, because she's kind of seems to be the most stabilizing.
From her, though.
No, but every time we've seen her, she's been very supportive and kind of stabilizing. Like, okay, take a deep breath, move on to the next thing.
A little bit. You can tell in this one though, she's getting worried. He's starting to scare her a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that other woman is there to push him over the edge. And I feel like, I don't know, we maybe get some Anakin and Padme drama going on there.
So we know we're getting, I mean, the last scene is interesting. It's dark. It's real dark. He's going to a very, very dark place now, presumably working for De Fontaine. But
I don't think he will right away.
You don't think
He's got his
so?
own agenda. He's got his own agendas to work through first.
he's
I mean,
he's going
here's
after
the
Carly
question-
Morgenthau.
Yeah.
Because he knows that she's the one. Like, I feel like part of that conversation with the parents about, the person who killed him is dead.
Well,
He knows that that's not true, and I think he's going after her.
I think you're right about who he's going after, but not the motivations.
Okay.
This is a selfish thing. This is
It's revenge.
bringing her down is the mission I failed that put me in this situation, and I got to finish it.
And now I'm going to destroy
That's
her
what
for
that is.
destroying me.
He's now a revenger.
That's what that is.
He's now that's like he's a
A
revenger.
revenger.
He's a revenger. Yeah.
That's yeah.
So what about Rose's question here? Why no post-credit scene till now? And I don't know. I think that scene was important to set the stage for this final episode. I think to let us know that he hasn't just gone away. Like, he's coming back now. That's my question. Like, we've built up a lot of bad guys in this. Of course, we remove Zemo from the equation, but man, who is this last fight between? And of course, I'm going to ask what I think is an obvious question. What's in the case from Wakanda?
Wakandan wings.
Do they flap like that?
Yes, they do. They've got
Yeah, no, it's going to be Sam's own version of the Captain America uniform, probably complete with wings.
With wings, yeah.
Yep. I think it's vibranium armor. We're going to have some stars and stripes. We're going to have something inspired by Sam's time as Cap in the comic books. That's
yeah,
And a,
cat
vib-
suit.
and a vibranium Red Wing with Wakandan technology.
ooh, yeah, we got to get Red Wing back. I loved Red Wing.
Yeah, even if Bucky hated him. But yeah, I think it's. Well, I thought it was significant whenever he picks up the shield and leaves the wings. I feel like that was, I feel like this was a really big character moment for him. But yeah, I don't think that, like, I think we're getting like some kind of wings. Maybe not exactly the same, but
I mean, that's the only reason for it to be, technology from Wakanda. It's new
Captain
wings,
Falcon.
and it's
Other than the
vibranium.
fact that it can be vibranium, I mean, the Black Panther suit is supposed
That's
to be
true.
Vibranium reinforced. It's it's vibranium armor.
Right.
So, yeah, it can be a cap suit, and I do think there'll be some wings there. Like I said, I believe it's going to be something inspired by his version of the Captain America suit when he was Cap in the comics.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up, anybody got any last thoughts?
I'm so excited for this. The next episode is going to be 2 hours long, right?
I think they would have told us by now, but that would be nice. But I think it's going to be in keeping with the others. They've all been about 50 minutes.
Maybe the
20, 45 minutes,
WandaVision
not an hour.
finale was a little longer, so maybe it'll be like an hour and 15.
We'll see.
A girl can wish, right?
Just tell the story. Well, however many minutes it takes to tell the story right, just tell
They've
the
done
story.
well with that, though. I feel like taking however much time they needed to tell it right. So
Yep.
I'm optimistic. I've definitely, as this show has gone on, I have become increasingly. I always liked Bucky. Like, I always thought, I don't know. I kind of like dark and broody.
I was about to say, she thinks Sebastian Stan is sexy. That's all that is.
He
I'm
reminds
excited
me of
to see.
Andrew. That's
excited
the-
to see what's going on. What's going to show? Who's going to show up? I still think there's a big surprise yet to come before this ends. And it may just be that they prove us all wrong about who the power broker is, but unless and maybe it is Mephisto. But that's all I've got left to say. Are y'all good?
I'm good. I think I've said it all at least once.
All right. Thank you to everybody that joined us in the chat. And Marisha, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I am princesses_and_padawans, and I am P Padawans on Twitter.
And Daniel?
I am Dan C. Peeps on Twitter.
All right, and I'm Andrew Gore. You can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can drop us a line at thesciencefictionary@gmail.com. And as always, check out the rest of the Red 5 podcast family at red5network.com. And until next time, may the force be with you.